This piece is called Fugitive, and it's the title of the book that's not out yet, that will be soon. I am fugitive, as is this sacred body, black, queer as fuck, liminal, in and of the deep waters, bottomless, a rage as breath blazing, my armored scales the wisdom of these bodies in motion, responding, an intelligent evolution as grace. I am a liquid testimony poured into drought and famine, but also true, into sacred and infinite abundance. I am galactic. I traverse the infinite quantum, sentient, astronautic, into the cosmos of consciousness, pattern bender, Argo emergent from singularity of bones and die. Explosive, decadent. I am the enemy of contrivity. Mind bows to and within the whole. I am a ring of consciousness, a servant of the sacred everything, a worshiper of the consensual thing. I portal new language, burn old language more true. Modernity, apocryphal, rises from patterns based in dominion over an entangled oblivion, insidious and debased, a desecration continuing, a pseudo-authority moving, a culture as necrophilia, as ravenous rape, a shell as plague of nothingness, layer upon layer, and the vile, empty infects, and the pus oozes into our sacred everything. We move lost to our holy, this machine of intentional forgotten evil. Rage, my fire, breakthrough atmospheric lies, wings, passionate, smashing into concrete walls, once split open this flesh relentlessly, but these wounds, they scab over. Screaming, I shed my skins again and again just to make room for what is. Sacred fire, make jelly these walls of lies. I eat my way through the melting, shit it out on the other side. Bullshit has no color, no gender. The taste is a fucking lie. Truth, transgenic, grave after grave, wrapped in pretty paper and ribbon. False ceremony is the current trend, and the colors run putrid, thickening, move like parasite, masquerading as water to a thirsty mind, but the cat o' nine tails to a choking collective. We walk lashed and gaping past. It lives in my everything. The breath of bones is an integration, not idealized, even as I worship, even as I move as the reckoning, ancestral and into the now. Accountability begs all directions. Then I weep at the feet, a wailing, a holy ravaging from the yesterdays into the tomorrows, the grief alive, erotic river of tears that flow, that saturate, that pool round my knees, coated in earth's dust. Emergent of dark materials, the child of infinite suns and black holes. I am. We are. We usher in the inheritance, sound off as the sirens of legacy notes in the sultry song of a little blue orb. Slow, to hear the birds sing, to feel the winds sensually howl their truth. The roots speak their long time love, earth's resonance, and also true. I move hungry, fangs dripping, ravenous is the claiming of my accountability. This, my love of selves, feral, sacred, and unapologetic. This, my promise that I will honor you whole. This, my reverence, in and as the grace of timeless sentience, and it moves like wildfire, erotically. Thanks. This piece is called Fish Out of Water. It's part of a trilogy that I wrote called Conversations and Consent. I struggle to write this piece as I seek to bring words to the relentlessness of it. Like a fish in water, the water, all it knows nothing different than the waters that flow through its gills. It perhaps has never seen clean water, cannot fathom it, only knows the feel, the taste of the water it's in. Its ancestors passed on such knowing for the growing conditions of the waters becoming. The fish, it does not even notice that its body makes concessions to survive. It does not notice the assault on its body. Its pain simply is, and it keeps swimming, hidden to the great loss. Can fish grieve? And the earth? We look at each other, still functioning, though not wholly. The very waters that drown us, we breathe in to survive, accustomed, ever acclimating to the choking our bodies move as. We are manipulated. We are and become the manipulation cultivated into such concession, molded and formed like clay. A cloudy resignation as performance, as our emotions siren, holy symphony, as feeling, as wailing, and we find all the ways to silence them. Silence parts of our whole so we can function. We make them wrong, make them the enemy, ourselves the enemy, each other the enemy, and not the contrived rape culture that saturates the very air we breathe. A pause, ourselves the enemy, and a culture rampant and autoimmune dis-ease. And we all know the violences in the air exist. Most of us feel it moving. We find our waves of surviving such myriad waves, exhausting efforts to just breathe, live a life, and try not to be assaulted. But really, what we do is try not to feel the assaults that are moving everywhere, relentlessly. Our bodies, our consciousness so exquisite in our capacity that both survival and liberation pull at us beyond our noticing. Faith lives in the body, in the marrow, in the caverns of consciousness as survival. Faith in what rises from the enduring, from we are still here, from the amazing grace of ourselves. We keep ourselves alive, protect our consciousness as best we can, all the while our beings of self also make clear that they do not consent over and over. They do not consent. We fight for our liberation, emotion, sounding sacred songs, echoing through ourselves, echoing through each other, echoing across the earth. We protect ourselves from the violence of these waters we breathe, even as we fight for our liberation from them. We are the everything. Our beauty, unfathomable, these most incredible motions as self-love. And all of this, most often, moves well beyond our noticing. These motions of grace, and also true, the sacred paradox, as the relentless molds so many of us into marionettes on strings, perpetrators and victims, a kind of numbing to our whole, and we become lost to ourselves, lost to each other, peddlers of the very culture from which we seek reprieve, of which we seek transformation. We move forgotten to a practice of holy self-reflection, forgotten to the knowing that we are self-love in motion. Amnesia moves, and experiential intimacy lives as a surface walking, half dead, faint whisper, rising from the promise of deep waters, the marrow of our bones beckoning. We've distanced ourselves from seeking beyond the literal. We are saturated in a narcissism of mind we misperceive as living, as loving, as a whole, consensual, abundant life. Together, we are holograms, steeped in hierarchy, dwelling gripped in a terror of what might lurk in the deep of ourselves, what might lie in the weight of these holy dark caverns that take in the world's ugly. We know we've been stuffing, even while not noticing the grace of our self-love, ever moving beyond our awareness, protecting, but these relentless protective motions, not meant to be forever. We not meant to stay forever hidden from ourselves. And these motions cannot forever be non-consensual. We no longer even check in with ourselves. We no longer even ask ourselves, just stuff and expect ourselves to handle it. Our beings, our bodies to just keep holding it. Reminds me how we treat Black people, but that's another poem. We are haunted, tiptoe past certain rooms of ourselves, the ones that feel dangerous, like we could get swallowed up in there, fall into an endless sea of despair. It happens. I know. Hurt after hurt after hurt, we move and we become what we become. I wonder about oceans, polluted currents. I wonder about being swept out to drown. I wonder if I can know myself, if I can remember myself, and the ways I have evolved to navigate. If I can arouse my intention to love on myself as abundantly as what always moves beyond my consciousness in the sacred deep of me. Might I awaken? Might I align beyond just survive and evolve to dwell in the holy abundance of my everything? Can I ride this current? Can we ride this current together? Can the very nature of our reaching clean these waters? Thanks. This piece is called Loogie. Sometimes I want to spit that shit on the concrete. Just hawk this fucking loogie, draw it up from the back of my throat, sticky green, uninvited, send it down with the force that shit deserves. Watch it splatter across the pavement, sun baked into oblivion, evaporated. Distant memory, just a light discoloration, tracked over by life, movement, flow, long forgotten. Oh, fuck. If that shit don't come right back just as soon as I spit, stubborn ass phlegm. And I get better and better. Practiced as fuck. Hawk that shit perfect. Aim. Beautiful precision. I tell you, I can hit the head of a needle 10 feet away. Watch it ooze on down the side. I take a bow. A fuck. Soon as I do, I can feel that nasty shit building in the back of my throat again. Look around, all my siblings hawking that shit too, and with precision. Such artistry, I ain't lying. We dope as fuck, y'all. Now we be having Loogie hawking competition. The arts too. Hey, I'm a Loogie poet, y'all. Loogie fucking paintings, mixed media Loogies on canvas, Loogie busts, Loogies or bust, fucking Loogie slogans on t-shirts. All this creative, incredible capacity on fucking Loogies. This piece is called Wet Paint. As the black of night and little orb turns another solar corner, I reflect on what the Black diaspora has endured over centuries and into the now. When I look at Israel's actions, I gaze deep into myself, a mirror of my own humility, and I bow my head to this blood-soaked earth. In the blazing haunting of reflecting, where might this live in me? To never become day by day by day that which we've endured, to instead emerge the alchemy through forever practice, or something else will. I keep reflecting on Jennifer Lewis's quote, wherever you go, you take yourselves with you, baby. A meditation as I walk this life, create of this sacred blink in time, a living, emerge a selfhood in relationship to and as an abundant liquid blue planet and its wilderness of inhabitants. As I move nestled in a cultural context that has raped and reproached my very existence the world over, as I, Black, queer, mother, raise Black children in an enduringly anti-Black world, and that emotion lives and moves in me as I survive violences, watch as my diasporic kinfolk are murdered and blasphemed of depravity over generations, as I gaze over the scars of these relentless cuts like razors slashing at my flesh out of thin air. I slow, seek to curate, to cultivate a beingness that emerges, a will that acknowledges and concedes that it has been coerced and that coercion always hunts. As I seek relationship to how my footsteps will imprint upon the earth, who and what will I make of myself as my birthright until I am released from this life, whether in the eyes of God's or the eyes of my own reverent accountability as grace. What might I become? What might I create? What will be the ceremony, the legacy of my living as my ancestral conversation moving through and as the medium of me in the right now? What I am, what I make of these selves, how I live myself and my relations will pour from me as the truth. And it's here that I place the passion, the erotic of my eyes so that I can continue on, ever becoming a being, readily and gratefully accountable, consensual, reverent, gracious, and whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Genesis. Thank you. The impact of your words and the reading, it took my breath away and took me somewhere. I just really appreciate you and what you create.
Thank you. I'm really, I already told you this, but I'm really so grateful and honored to commune with you here and to be invited into the family here. I feel the same way when I hear your work, both of you. And I'm grateful to be able to share the resonance this way.
Thank you so much. It is a resonance because you words go through, at least in my experience, through my body, and it doesn't allow for any other experience to happen when you're engaged in that. So it's an instant connection, and also although we're virtually speaking, it's a connection that is so real. And I think that one of the questions that come in mind is how do you prepare for that as someone who's given everything in a moment, like a suspended moment to reflect on things and just really listen. How do you prepare for that, and what it does to you, what it gives you, what happens there?
Mm. I go into what is the story I want to walk inside myself. I feel my poems as a story of me in some ways. The stories of how I perceive and and what moves from those perceptions. And so I curate this story, and I don't tend to spend a lot of time there because once I do that, I might walk through it once, but I like to be inside of the experience myself. And I've learned if I spend too much time in something, I can just run through it rotely, and I don't choose that in my pieces. I don't think that that's honoring of myself or my work. So I've learned how to just do just enough, and then what moves is what moves, and I allow it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
it came through in what you read today, and your worship, in your words, your worship of consent is
Mm.
is something so necessary and so an antidote to what we find ourselves up against for millennia, and especially in the timeline we're in at the moment. And I we would love to hear more about worshiping consent, what that means to you, and it comes through in your work, and I hear it. I just think it's such a central and beautiful concept that should be. It's funny. It should be something that is the way it is, right? It should always. It should be a given, and yet it's not. And so the way that you elevate it to say, I literally worship consent. I would love to hear more about that, your thoughts on that.
Mm. Um, in my living, you know, there are places where I experienced that the world was moving its agenda on me, on the people around me, in my family, um, despite best intentions, maybe. I just looked at how we all wanted to be close to each other, but were flailing and didn't know how to get there, including myself. I always felt on the outside of that dialogue. And then I noticed one day that in my walk, I was always looking for that. I didn't know it literally. I didn't know the words yet. I just noticed that what is a way I can be whole, celebratory of all that I am, because I'm dope as fuck. And also stand in the space of greatness, of you, Annette, and Lourdes, and celebrate your whole, because y'all dope as fuck. And we can all just be that together in a way that doesn't diminish ourselves or each other. And so I noticed that was a constant communion inside my bodies and in what I was observing in my emotions. For example, my children have never been in school, and that's been their choice. And we don't do school at home, and that's also been their choice. And learning happens all the time. I have beautiful moments that I could fill up this whole hour with, of how I have had to do nothing but get out of their way and celebrate them and support them and trust them, which means I have to first trust myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I've watched them flower in that space, become the truth of what they are and not what my agenda is. And so I speak that because I had real problems with compulsory education. And I don't mean learning. I mean, the compulsory component of education is inherently coercive and non-consensual. So this was one of my pathways towards consent. I've had many. I did body work, my dialogue with bodies, the communion, and I would listen. That's a conversation and consent. My relationships outside of hierarchy, my children, the agency I offer them, but also in my intimate relationships. I don't choose mythologies that feel hierarchical for me, or more specifically, power hierarchies. I don't choose those dialogues. I choose to walk in relationship to what the truth is, and I don't place anything on a pedestal. So there's a lot of different directions that I've noticed in my walking and in my living that ultimately brought me to the recognition that I worship consent. So it wasn't an idea I had that I moved into. It was a walking that I ultimately discovered and continue because I like what it does to my living and I like what it creates in my relationships. And I like how it allows other people to be whole in my space.
Thank you. We've talked before about just the dance and the challenges of being human in relationship, and also in allowing yourself to have the space and the expansion to be all that you are, to not leave any of yourselves behind, and to do that in the context of this, narcissistic capitalistic society that we reject. This, how do we do that and be in these profound, loving relationships with cherished other beings, right? Whether they're our children, lovers, other friends, people we share art and share vision with and resonance with. How do we do that? And I think your dance with that and your public sharing of your dance with that is beautiful. It's beautiful, and we drink it in and we appreciate it and we learn from it. But I would love to hear about that as well, like yourselves, like how do you negotiate that when you have little ones, when you have babies, when you have people who, you give them their agency and they also want your time all the time, right? So how do you sometimes manage to allow everybody in that scenario to flourish and flower? Just, I think a lot of people have that struggle, and I like to hear more of your thoughts.
Mm. The spaces on first looking at them feel or seem or appear mutually exclusive, but they're ultimately not. They just, we all matter. We just all matter. And so there's a lot of communication and a lot of listening and a lot of learning. A quick story, my son, he doesn't have he's got a beautiful vocabulary, but he doesn't tend to move a lot of words. That brother's like, he's a quiet ocean, and he communes a certain way. And to love him, to know this and to honor this. And I'm a words person, I'm a poet, and I privilege words, right? I privilege when people can communicate their feels a certain way, and that comes from a colonial preference that rises. Well, that's a whole nother dialogue. But what I learned from my son, what my son brought to me, was to quiet and to slow and to observe his beauty and listen from another place of myself. He communicates quite readily, and it's beautiful. It's like it conjures in me the same feels as when I'm in nature, right? When I'm walking through, when I'm walking in the desert where I live, or when I'm walking by the ocean, or when I'm walking in a forest, like it conjures that same kind of listening from everything that I am. And it challenges the very heady space that I can sometimes enter. And that is a gift that he consistently gives me. And so I could choose how to locate myself in that gift. I could decide it's irritating, and I could decide that my son needs to move more words, and I could decide and privilege and push my agenda of that on him. But instead, I choose to let his wisdom seep into me and change me and grow me. And then I become this thing that can step out into the world ever different because I have a relationship with him. And also because he has so much spaciousness he honors when I bring him my thoughts, you know, and he's a teen. So, you know, the teen things go down. Don't like the teen moments, you know, and I don't say that, as a deprecating word on teens. I say that as an adult, as a teen, as an adult communing with the teen, I'm learning the new language, and I'm not always ready for it. I'm just like, okay, how do I adjust? What are you communicating to me? Right? It's rarely literal. It's rarely literal. It's almost always poetry. So, you know, he'll, you know, receive me, and he doesn't always, I don't make him go, did you hear me? Tell me, you know, I watch, he'll receive me. And then later I'll watch his behavior is just different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I know I've been heard and that he honors my words. And if he doesn't change his behavior, that's okay too, as long as we're in consensual relationship. Because if he doesn't change it, it means it wasn't his truth. And he gets to. He's the one who knows his path well better than I do. And I trust that because I trust my own.
I think the reaction of like the giggling that we have when we talk about teens is not at all against them. I think we automatically, it conjures a memory of ourselves as teens. and you know, it just like, I don't know, it just conjures it up immediately, and we gotta go back
Real
there.
talk.
And most of us didn't have someone who gave us that agency, that choice, that nobody, you know, most of our parents were raised again with that very, you know, constrictive type of keep us in line kind of parenting. So so to hear you speak of the way that you very deeply treat your son and your children with reverence for their bodies, their personhood, and their choices and their wisdom, is just, it's a revolution. It's a revolution and an evolution, right? And I think, you know, but that's what it is. It's like we just kind of remember our own like being in those
Real.
years, because they're difficult. I mean, they were difficult. So what a beautiful gift that they have you.
Yeah,
That's all.
no, definitely.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. When you
Yeah.
say, oh, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
It made me think because, you know, Enina J and I are really good friends, right? And we partnered together a poetic harmony we've named Liquid Testimony.
Yes.
And she and I have a lot of dialogues about what we notice, because I wasn't raised, you know, I mean, my parents loved me, and they did what they knew how to do.
Yeah.
Right. And that's an ocean of communion, right? But you know, when we look at what they, you know, how they respond to these, you know, just how they move in the world, it's fascinating, even outside of as a mother, even outside of just my reflections as a mother, you know. Nina and I look and we're just like, that's crazy. Look at that. Like, there's a lot of things I think that we take for granted. I don't think we realize how that control affects an entire population.
Yes.
There's not many that are not constantly controlled. What does it do to have to, in all ways and all forms, constantly be under the thumb of control? When, what you're going to learn, when you're going to learn it, who's going to teach it? You need a hall pass to go to the bathroom. If you don't behave this way, are you looking at me? Don't draw while you're listening. Put that pencil down, pick that pen up. After school, you got after school stuff you got to do. You got homework. It takes up all your time. No family time. No family time. You might have 20 minutes to take a shower. You want free time, right? You want free time. And then that's controlled. And then they want to call you oppositionally defiant.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
No, it is so interesting when you're saying that. One thing you said, I learned how to locate myself in that interaction, in that, and we don't think about it that way. We really don't. It's actually a lot of what also is passed down is this inflexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Just know, like, and it to me it is a new methodology that you're developing, and it's, how to be in a different way in this world that it used to really tries to control everything out of you in this carceral state. The schools have become that. Every time you go to perform at a school, it's like, oh my God, by the time you leave, it's just like you're exhausted because the control issue. And I think it would be so beautiful as this develops to see how these interactions bring really like true liberation to people, because we're not liberated. We may talk about liberation, but that work that you do is extremely powerful and extremely new. I think in my understanding of it and the way I hear it.
Well, you can see how it's all of that, then from parenting, the militarized schools, the carceral state, the school to prison pipeline, the whole thing, how it also, it's not absent then from even from the movements for liberation, the movements for justice. All of us are products of that as well. And so we're trying to disentangle ourselves from that as well. So to hear someone, creating, and that's, and it's challenging because any of us who have bucked any part of the oppression, we know that you've set up multiple, more things for you to do, and the energy it takes, it's to create this new place, because the system is created for you to just plug in. You're supposed to plug in over here. And so it's not just a matter of, oh, I'm going to go over here and unplug. No, there's a lot of obstacles to that. So to mother that way, to parent that way, to create art that way, to liberate yourselves that way, to work on new language that way, we just really honor that. And I hope, it's a hope that this little family connection, this Voxfem that we do, that is, we always hope that these are seeds that of connection, that as you know, we don't believe in the hierarchies and all of that, and the fame and celebrity. We really are looking for the authentic, creative process that is transformative. And that's why we wanted you to be part of this. And so it's just a real hope that these ways that you've lived and worked on being with your children and with Inina, and with the larger community, I just really hope that it's something that takes hold, just putting it out there, because I think that is it has to go to the root, and it has to be transformative, to get rid of, to have consent be something that's central, and to get rid of that coercion at the very sort of center of our lives. So I don't know if that was a question, a statement.
You know, I didn't know this when I was, new to this planet and kind of figuring out how to move in these skins that I have, and, growing and learning about Earth's specific relativities, and then also human cultural mythologies, right? Learning how to navigate that. I didn't know that I was a work of art. And I didn't know that every person and everything that I was seeing is a work of art. I knew how I experienced things. I knew that nothing like nature could make me feel so overwhelmingly abundant, like I was just going to burst and spill out all over myself, right? Like I didn't know that that's because I am this creature that has all these senses to be able to have an experience that who's also emotional. So I can have an experience that is passionate, to be able to feel passion in the face of the beauty of the earth, to be able to experience that. I didn't know that was a thing. Like I just lived it. And so I got to a place as, as a writer, as a poet, where I started, to gaze at a thing and I look for the language to embody what I'm experiencing. And I realized it. Every person's walk is art. How they curate themselves in their life, how culture, how the world curates of them. It's a work of art. That we exist is a work of art, that we are on this planet, the whole communion of, I wonder sometimes, I have a poem where I wonder about what the dialogue is between the planets, what the dialogue is between galaxies, what the dialogue is between clusters of galaxies, what the, like it's infinitely miraculous and abundantly beautiful. And I'm here for that shit. I'm here for that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at all these places where we hemorrhage our beauty because of our fucking flailing and unnecessary violent bullshit, when I look at that and we waste all this creative capacity on fucking worthless, dumb shit, when we could be celebrating each other, when we could be celebrating our diversity because it's an intrinsic. What can I do but sing about that and wail about that? My nature. So I really enjoy, it nourishes me to experience everything whole. It nourishes me to learn about people's mythologies and honor that their walk, their ancestral dialogue is part of why their mythologies exist. Honoring of that. Until and unless that shit doesn't give me the same spaciousness, then we're gonna have a dialogue, right? But up until that place, I am reverent of people's spaces, and I'm curious and I'm grateful, like gazing at the color purple and, like the abundance that I have a sense to be able to perceive purple. That's an art. That in and of itself, color doesn't even exist. I'm created to experience color. And I don't have a dialogue about what created me or who. I don't particularly in my mythology need that as a necessity. I exist or I'm a dream. But whichever is true, I'm having this Genesis experience in communion with everything else. And I'm not here for capitalism. I'm not here for war. I'm not here for none of that. So I work really hard to curate a perceiving creature, a living creature that is true to what I am and what I choose. It's just a practice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been really an honor. Really.
I love y'all.
And
We love you
we love you
too.
too. And you've given me so much to feel about and to think and move about. move about the whole being. So I really appreciate you and what you're doing.
I want to add one thing. Lourdes, remember when I saw you perform live?
Yes.
I don't like the word perform, but we'll use that here. I saw you move clouds. Remember, I told you that when you were playing and singing, I gazed up at the sky and the clouds were singing with you. Like I watched it. I watched it. I'm here for that. Right? Like there's so much abundance in this life, and we can, I mean, to me, that's making love, right? To me, that's what that is. Like I get to deeply sensually experience what you're moving as your passion in this place. That's why we're here, to celebrate ourselves and celebrate each other, you know? And that when you sent me the song that you wrote that Lourdes also played in, I find myself playing that song in moments. You can imagine the moments you told me the story how that song was conceived. I experienced your emotion as you shared it. I'm here for experiencing the truth. And I'm really grateful to be here with you both. Because I experience both of your truth, and it's not difficult to feel. It's quite easy. It rides as what you are. And so I'm very grateful to have been invited. It meant a lot to me that you wanted to have this conversation communion with you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Generosity of spirit. Yeah, you moved all the clouds today.
Yes.
You moved all the clouds. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our gratitude to you. And I feel like I just want to know if you will come back again, if we can do something else together, because I feel like this conversation should continue. I feel like there's so many questions that got generated, and I feel like there's so much more. So I hope you consider
Coming back.
some form. We'll have to continue the conversation.
I would love to come back. You honor me with that. And also I would love to come back and look with testimony with Nina too.
Yes,
I would we
that
would
would be
love
awesome.
that. We would love
That would be a dope communion.
that. Yeah, that's what I'm
Perfect.
saying. There's so many, even like
So many
universe,
ways, right? Abundant.
universes being spawned here.
Yeah.
So
That would be awesome. Yes.
all right, well, that's what we're gonna do.
Yes.
And so thank you for being with us, Genesis.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.